Hey, Link here. Thanks for joining me for episode 94, where I speak with Luiza Tanaka, where we talk about how she got into the industry and words of wisdom from her experiences, the games that made her want to make games, what she enjoys about gaming, game series she feels should be more popular, games that don't get enough credit, her favorite games, her life outside of gaming, and some lightning round questions. Before we get started, don't forget there are links in the episode description that you can follow to learn more about Louisa as well as the podcast. Also, don't forget to like and share the episode, and without further ado, enjoy episode 94. Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic Podcast, a podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Luiza Tanaka, environmental artist that has contributed to games such as Palia and Smite. Hi, Luiza, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I am doing all right. It is a Friday, so it's the end of the week, and I don't have to worry about work, so it's going great.
That's always a good one. Yeah, tomorrow morning I get to wake up around 5 a.m. to run an errand. That's a bit far away, but other than that, I should have the rest of the weekend to relax and play some video games.
I wish you the best of luck. I am not the kind of person that enjoys waking up early, so
I
you
hate
have
it
my
too.
you have my greatest sympathies.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Louisa, before we get started, if you don't mind, would you mind telling me and anyone listening a little bit about yourself, kind of like the elevator pitch or like the need to know for who you are before we get started?
Yes, yes. So I guess I got into games because I always wanted to pursue art as a career. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved painting. Started taking like oil painting classes when I was like 7 years old, but I never knew how I was going to apply my love for the arts, professionally speaking. It just occurred to me one day when I was playing World of Warcraft that like, wow, there's so much beautiful art, in this game, and I don't think programmers make this. It took me so long to realize that, artists are required to make video games, and WoW has a very special place in my heart because I was playing it when I had just recently moved away from all of my friends to like a new place, and it was just a very comforting game for me to play when I was feeling down and just kind of missing, my home place. And so I started to look, okay, how can I pursue this career? Thankfully, there was a college not so far away from where I lived. I attended game art school for that. Right out of college, I was able to land a position at High Res Studios, where I primarily worked on Smite. I briefly also worked on some of their other IPs because like the company is big enough and they have other games that they might borrow some people if there's like certain milestones that need to be hit. Um, but then after that, I joined up with Singularity 6, where I was working on Palia, which is like a cozy life sim MMO. It was really rewarding time to have worked on that project. And right now, I am kind of in between jobs. I will be starting a new position in about a month, and I am super, super excited. So yeah, making environment art things. I love anything that's more stylized and hand painterly for sure.
So, thank you for sharing that. And also congratulations on the next chapter. Sorry, I'm always bad at how to properly say that, but congratulations on the next the next chapter. Screw it. I'm just gonna
Thank you.
hunker down.
I'm super excited.
And that's great to hear. And like, yeah, I hope it's a nice change of pace and something that you can enjoy, something that will give you uh I'm blanking on the word. I'm just hoping that it's something enjoyable for you.
Yeah, um I super appreciate, it's unfortunate that the game industry like lately has been very tumultuous, but I feel super thankful that I was able to, land a new spot where I think it'll be fairly safe, for a bit at least.
And, as someone that has a stable uh job that kind of, that is the one of the few things that is makes it good, tolerable. I don't know the right word. It's a job, right? Um I I can definitely appreciate the idea of like looking forward to a bit of stability, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of those like I guess give and take situations, it ideally every career path could be stable, but I think I understood in college when I was like studying to do game dev that like it's very much like an up and down situation. You could be doing well at some point and not so well another. So I think we kind of constantly tiptoe around and prepare ourselves if there will be some rough parts to navigate.
Yeah, exactly. And Louisa, speaking of rough things to navigate, and this is really dependent on your experiences with it. However, when you were working for High Res, when you were working on Smite, I imagine that meant you had to be a little familiar with the gods that would have been in it. So I'm wondering if you had a main and who it was.
Oh, so my main is Hera. I am diamond with her, close to getting twice diamond. I am one of those people that I like to rotate around playing different champions, but I really liked her toolkit. Like she came out like I would say halfway during the years that I was working at that studio, so she wasn't like the first person that I picked and played. But yeah, they're cool. Toolkit's just so much fun because you can summon Argus, the big kind of clockwork monster, and just like smash people with his fists. So I really enjoyed that.
I'm I'm happy to hear that you had a character that you enjoyed. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the last time I played Smite, it's been a while, so I'm not overly familiar with Hera. I think, oh, I can't even remember what the newest god was the last time I played. It's been a long time though. I want to say like at least 6, 7 years. But but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that
glad.
game. Oh, so sorry.
No, no, by
Yeah,
all means.
that game's been alive for a long time, so there's so much history. It's tough to remember, what season, what champion came out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I used to only play with a friend or two, and the our way of playing just it was like Friday Saturday night kind of thing. Um, and like we tried to get back into it a couple years ago, and we were looking at just the amount of gods now, and I'm like, I think there's over 100. It's like when we played, there was like it was just brushing against 50, and we're like talking. I'm like, I don't think any of our stupid strategies will even work anymore. They don't work anymore. Everything, the methods that we use to screw around with people, they're gone because all all the new gods have made that impossible. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you were able to have a character that you enjoy, especially enjoying enough to diamond twice, because I know, if memory serves, that's no small feat by the amount of games and everything that you'd have to play with it. So, I'm glad that you had a character that you enjoyed that much.
Yeah, totally. You might be maybe happy to hear that Smite 2 is coming out at some point in the near future, and they didn't bring all of the gods onto the game. They're starting with a much smaller roster, so it might be a good point if you are interested to jump back in because it wouldn't be as overwhelming.
Thank you. That is a good piece of advice that I'll have to bring up to my friend, especially if it means we can be idiots again and abuse health regen with Hercules and Ymir, because that was it was a really confusing time for everyone that you fought. If you built the tank to be HP regen, and you had Hercules popping heal off of a little bit of regen, They never died, and it just really confused everyone. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Smite, mostly because it's been a long time, and I have you here, and I don't want to, I don't want to prod you about one singular topic. Now,
All good, all
um,
good.
now you had mentioned, when you were given the kind of like elevator pitch or the, need to know, that, like when you one of the reasons you got into making games is because you like to do art and you wanted to find a way to apply that in a way that you'd enjoy. Um, so like that kind of covers how you got into developing and making games. If you want to speak more to it, by all means, I'm here to listen. However, if that's pretty much the short and long of it, I do have a follow-up question to that, which is basically if you have any words of wisdom that you can share from, the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I think the two extra things I wanted to add, well, one that would answer your question, and the other one just additional information. Um, So one of the reasons why like World of Warcraft is so special to me, uh, it's a little bit of a sappy story, but I think it resulted in like me being able to find a career path that I love. So it was a good experience to some extent. But because I'm originally from Japan, and I moved to the States when I was 15, and it was kind of a big culture shock. For me to, I moved to Michigan, which is so different from my hometown of Yokohama, you know. Um, so I missed all my friends, and I was just having a hard time with like school and just kind of like adapting to things. So I felt like World of Warcraft was like a very safe space for, life was a little tumultuous for me for like a couple years until I got used to things. And for me, I always wanted like joining the industry to be able to give back to the community, something that I benefited from it myself, like fantastic worlds where you can get immersed in story, where if it's an MMO or just an online game, you can befriend other people. I really wanted to kind of try and bring additional positivity into the world. That was one of the reasons I went to work for Singularity 6 on Palia, because it was a cozy MMO where I had the opportunity to work on an open world game, and just create nice cozy spaces for people to feel good in. And it does seem like some players, like it helped them through times when it was rough for them. And it just felt so good to hear that kind of feedback, because it's like that was the same situation for me when I was younger. Um, as far as words of wisdom, I feel like when I graduated from college, it was such a different landscape from currently. I think it was a time that if you were, so I'm speaking more on the artist point of view. Uh, I worked super hard during college to have the best portfolio that I could as a graduate. I don't know how good it was, but it was good enough to get a job right out of college. And I do find it like currently it is extremely tough, but uh, I think just keep applying yourself, keep working on your portfolio, because the way I was able to break in the industry was to like consistently like have a social media presence where I was discussing and posting art, and that's how I was able to get my big break.
So, thank you for sharing that. And like I like that advice. As someone that has a design background, the the portfolio aspect is always super important. When I went through, like I only went through for generalist design, so it's um it falls a little flatter for the kind of like social media presence that I was encouraged to have, because you know when you're doing like environmental art or character art or what have you, it's uh, easier to have something that's nice and focused. Whereas if you're going through for like generalist, it's just general mishmash of everything, unless you're smart enough to try and go singular, which I was not. But What I'm getting at is, thank you for that advice because I think the focus on just having a strong portfolio is always something that is good to keep in mind. For us, it wasn't as hammered through. It wasn't as hammered through for like the nice final project. It was always the process portfolio that we were hammered on. But having like a nice final, having something that's tooled up with your best work or your newest work or what have you, I just think it's fantastic advice because I don't know what is being told or taught to people anymore, but that's just good advice. So yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, no, totally. I do feel like, and I think there's a large sentiment of folks who attended college for game art specifically that some colleges, may have a good path to like train people up to join the industry seamlessly, but some other colleges might be kind of like a few years behind in the information that is current. And that can be a little dangerous. For example, with my college, they encouraged you to have like playable game demos, reels, which are like a video format of your portfolio. And it's totally relevant for some fields, but for game art specifically, and if you are, I would say, a character artist or environment artist, I would say it's much more important for you to have completed characters or completed environments. Like it does not need to be in a video format. It doesn't need to be playable. Just show a narrow section of high quality work.
Again, thank you, because yes, I think that is a fantastic advice to, just for how to focus it and, what is important or what you feel is important because, like I said, or sorry, no more like you said, your college was a few years behind. So, having more relevancy, to, current is always a good thing. As well, I wanted to just mention how the I don't know if the approach is the right word here, but like your approach to wanting to do games or what have you. Sorry, I'm botching how to summarize this, but wanting to like bring positivity. Um, I think that's just fantastic. So like I understand completely because in your case as well, it's a little unique that you were going through a very very big move from I'm just gonna say like the Tokyo area for anyone who doesn't know where Yokohama is specifically. I hope that's all right. Um, whether or not it's the proper prefecture and all that, I don't know. Sorry for being wrong if that's the case. But
It's
going
it's
from
about 1 hour from Tokyo, and they don't really have borders. So it's almost just like you go from Tokyo to Yokohama, and it just feels like you're still in the same city almost.
And that's one of the things that I get screwy with, just because I know that for like for Tokyo metropolitan or what have you, if you are like you can see the curvature of the earth and it's just more
More
city. So
city,
that's
yeah.
that's the thing that screws with me the most is I don't know where one city starts or another ends. But
Totally, totally.
but thank you. So from Yokohama, you went from there to Michigan, which is um a very very big leap. Going from that area, I'm just going to say, of Japan itself to I think anywhere um outside of like one or two places is probably a very very big leap. So what I'm getting as I can understand and appreciate the approach of wanting to do something that would help like spread positivity and carrying that through to something like Palia, where it's a cozier game, and like you said, knowing that you're going to be contributing to something that is going to also be helping spread positivity for people when they probably need that escape or they just enjoy it or what have you. But I just wanted to comment on that and say like how thank you for sharing that, and like I can appreciate that mindset, and I think it's a wonderful mindset to have.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I hope to be able to continue down that path in my career. I think I've been able to work on games that I feel pretty aligned with. Smite maybe being a little bit violent, but I would say it's still like kind of more goofy violence. The overall art style of it is not too dark and grim. But Pele was like, you know, we tried to make everything as happy and cheerful as possible, and those are definitely types of games that I hope to be able to create, in the future.
And the best way to move on from this question, I think, is to just say, I wish you the best of luck in doing that. Just because, just based on what you've said, I think that would just be a fantastic thing for you to get to continue contributing to.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know how this question's going to go. I have an idea, maybe. However, because you talked about WoW and like how it holds a special place in your life. I'm wondering, were there any other games that you enjoyed that you were like, oh wow, this is something people can do, uh, in terms of like for you applying art. Were there any other games that made you go, oh, this is something that I could do? And if there were, would you mind speaking to them?
Yeah. Um, so I think the first game that I played that like it really I started viewing games more than just a distraction, but as an art form. And this was before World of Warcraft, but it was Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii, because that game is such a wonderful experience in terms of gameplay and art and music. Like, it's really every single craft that goes towards games at its like peak, form of excellence. I really regard that game super highly. Uh, I don't know if it's my favorite game, but it's the game that I think that I've played that has been executed the best. And after having played that game, like it really opened me into like wanting to be more of a gamer. Because I think prior to that, like I had a Game Boy and I played PC games, but I kind of just viewed them as like fun time wasters. And I think that was the first game where it's like, no, I want to dedicate more time to playing games. I think I was still too young to think about the possibility of working in games. But my goodness, that game is so phenomenal.
So, thank you for sharing that. And like sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of phrase this, just because, I in the last little bit I've noticed it's started to get a little contentious to talk about certain aspects of like the older 3D Mario games. I some people are doubling down now that the controls are actually horrible for Mario 64 or what have you, what have you, what have you. Which I find really difficult to navigate. But what I'm getting at is like one of the things I've always appreciated about Mario games is, depending on like how old you were, depending on where you kind of came into it and started playing them, the uh the experience for them always seems to be really consistent. I'm 36, so my first Mario games were like 1, 2, 3, and Super Mario World. That era of them. But the Mario 3 and Super Mario World and what have you, I hold them in a very similar regard to how you hold Galaxy. And for people that started with like 64 or Sunshine, it's kind of similar, right? So like I'm always happy to hear that Mario is such a consistent uh expectation setter, or no, that's the wrong word.
Hmm.
Um Experience setter. That's the right word, starts with an E. But I'm always happy to hear that. So thank you for sharing that and going through my rambling there.
Yeah, I think Nintendo always delivers like such a good, consistent experience. And for me, because like when I got the Wii, I was a bit of an older teenager. But that was still like my first console. Like I never had gotten a console prior to the Wii, and yeah, I just wonder like if I had been able to have a GameCube, what I would have thought of Mario games then.
And as someone who enjoys playing older games or going back to games which really really annoys my backlog of newer games. Um, I I do my best to like think about the era itself when, like how I would have felt about that game then. And it's difficult because, it's impossible to do that. But like I always find it interesting going back and, being like, oh wow, so this is what I missed, right? And like realizing that it's more of the same, but I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in like the sense of it's more of the same. It's delivering on exactly what I expected it to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So I am curious though, um, because you've talked or you kind of circled around a few different things and you've mentioned a few different things. Uh, can you speak more to like what it is about gaming that you find enjoyable? Because it sounds like you didn't get into it until your teenage years, or later half of your teenage years, or what have you. Which is a little different from me, where I was like always playing games. So the perspective is, well, one, we're different people anyway, but the perspective will be different. But I'm kind of curious about like the perspective of someone that got into games a little older, or later in their young life or what have you, to hear what it is about games that they enjoyed the most or do enjoy the most.
Yeah, no, totally. 'Cause I would say like the first kind of games that I was like into, I really liked sim style games, like Sim City, Roller Coaster Tycoon, of course, The Sims. And those are definitely like, sandbox. It's whatever you want to do. In some ways, they're very toy-like. And considering, at that time I was like around 10, still playing with my toys, still chasing my dog in my yard. Like it was a good, consistent kind of experience for the type of fun that I like to have back then. But I would say, as I've matured and gotten older, I definitely, I enjoy games that are going to be a bit more challenging in terms of gameplay. But the consistent thing that I find myself gravitating towards nowadays is really like I love silliness and I love story. And like of no specific genre, to be honest. So like a broad range of like GTA 5's like campaign was so funny and so hilarious. Like the characters are just I sometimes I was in stitches because like some of the quests are so hilarious. The Yakuza series, so good. I'm playing like a dragon and I'm trying to get through the last dungeon, but the side quests are just, and it's actually in Yokohama, the like a dragon. So I really like playing that game because it's like, oh, I'm running around the same park where I grew up. Baldur's Gate has so much opportunity for silliness, and most recently have beaten South Park Stick of Truth because it's also like so. Yeah, I love story that is also willing to be comedic. So I think the a lot of sorry, I've touched on a lot of different things that I love about games, but in general, like yeah, escapism is great.
So, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, you touched on a handful of games, or I was actually going to try and see if I could pull some out of you, but you offered them up willingly. So, there goes that follow-up question, I suppose. Um, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to like formulate this question as I'm rambling through, which either works really well or horribly. Um, right now it's working horribly. Um, I'm wondering, as someone that grew up in Japan, getting to go back to the Like a Dragon series, um, I'm like, does that make it? Well, you did mention that it's recognizable to you. I'm wondering if like is that part of what makes it so fun for you, or is it just the sheer um what's absurdity? Let's go with the sheer absurdity that series really likes to double down on at times.
I will say it does help a little bit that I can run around and like some of the neighborhoods are like vaguely recognizable. I would say kind of like how Grand Theft Auto 5 is not a perfect version of LA, but it's still like holds the flavor pretty well. Like some of the major streets are represented. I would say it's the same for Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I really picked it up because like I was just seeing trailers and like all of the silly stuff that you're doing in there. I also liked Yakuza Zero, and that's I think in Tokyo and Osaka. So for me, it's like if you have a fantastic, like silly story to give to me, I will definitely check it out.
And, so thank you for that. And on that same thread, I'm wondering, is there like a game that has like a silly story or what have you that you don't think gets enough attention, enough credit or what have you, is, going under the radar for a lot of people? I'm wondering if if you have like your own hidden gem for like silly story or what have you that you would share.
Ooh, well, I feel like it has gotten enough attention, but or like I wouldn't say it's a small game, but I have so much love for the Persona series, and I don't think it's as popular in the States as it is, maybe in Japan. But and the story can be, quite lighthearted at parts. It's I feel like it's well-rounded because there's parts that feel very cheerful and then parts that are very serious. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's kept my attention for so long. But yeah, I love Persona 5. I'm playing Persona 3 Reloaded right now, and it's just amazing experience.
So thank you for that. And it's I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too familiar with the popularity aspect or like where it stands. Because I got into Persona when Persona 3 first came out. I got one of like the only copies that existed in the town that I lived in somehow.
Oh wow.
Um uh well, it was also that was when Atlas was pumping out like pre-orders plus 100 kind of thing.
Mhm.
That used to be their whole MO, which is, for them and for NIS, uh, their whole MO used to basically be you buy it because you'll never see it otherwise. Um, but so I'm not too familiar with how popular wise it is in the grand scheme of things now. Um, because especially like once you're into that territory, you're gonna recognize it, right?
Mhm.
But I far be it for me to ever not recommend Persona. I've enjoyed all of the ones that I've played. I've made several attempts to go back to the first three. However, the first person dungeoneering aspect always kind of screws with me. So I haven't been able to fully commit. But yeah, no, that's like if anyone listening has never gotten into Persona or gave it a shot or what have you, it's a fantastic series to experience because it ranges from absurd to not absurd, but at the same time, it's well into the absurdity when it leans into it, right?
Yeah, no, totally. I'd say the characters in the fifth version of Persona, like they're very well rounded, and the cast like they work so well together, and yeah, I just love the humor that comes from the chemistry of the characters.
Yes, it's it's a testament that the writing for the characters is so good. With Persona 4 being one of the most consistently voted best JRPGs of the PS2 era, to have that writing continue on, like having that staff, having those expertise or what have you, continue on and just do do better or what have you for the next one is, yeah, it's yeah, they always do a fantastic job in making the characters um have actual depth, right? Like make them actually feel like there is their own personal stakes as well as what else is going on affecting the area, the world. I don't know how to phrase it at large, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I love it when characters like feel multidimensional.
Yes, that's a good word for it too. uh, so Louisa, I'm gonna hit you with this one. Um, you know, I did hit you. You know, I kind of bugged you about this in a different way. Um, is there a game in your life that you don't feel gets enough credit? And I know, like I said, I hit you with a variation of that one just a few moments ago. But yeah, I'm wondering if there's one that you know, that you really enjoy, and you're like, well, no one else likes it. They should though.
Yeah, no, totally. So because my first console was the Wii, and I feel like the Wii really introduced like motion controls. I think some people hate it, some people love it because that was like my first console. Like I really like it because it's like that's how I started off playing games. So I really like any games on the Switch that also uses motion controls. And two games that I don't think get enough love is the first one is Arms, which is kind of like a boxing, like punching game. It's so much fun. It makes you break out on a sweat. The art is amazing. It's so well optimized for like how detailed the art is. I really enjoy like how each different character has a distinct like play style. Like one of the characters that I like playing, she has like her hair is actually like the punching gloves, and then another one is like all about noodles. It's been a bit since I booted up the game, but it's so delightful and very straightforward. So I recommend it for literally anyone, from child to older adult. And and then the second game would be Ring Fit, which is also another game using motion control. Um, I got it right before the pandemic. So during my quarantine, I was playing a lot of it at home to try and just stay active. And it's like so good actually, because it's like it's well tuned to really read your movements accurately. Sure, it won't know every single movement. Sometimes it gets slightly confused, but it's surprisingly accurate. The art is very good for, you think it's an exercise game, but it's very detailed, very believable for the world and the setting. Has a has a bit of a story to try and entice you to keep playing the game. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the game, other than I don't think you can play it more than like an hour at a time because you're getting tired. Literally from doing push-ups and sit-ups.
So, you know, thank you for those recommendations. Um, as someone who how do I put this? Fell out of the habit. There we go of doing the ring fit. I agree completely with everything that you said. It was I really enjoyed the way that it gamified exercise. It was such an interesting take, and you know, the like you said, like the way the story is set up to entice you, and whatnot. But yeah, no, it's like, you know, an hour at best, and you do maybe you know, one or two I'm gonna say routines or what have you. You're like, okay, I'm done. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know, when it comes to arms, I've always been curious about it, and I always forget that it exists. So thank you for bringing that one up, because now I remember it exists again, and I'm going to have to actively see about its existence, see what I can, you know, if I can find it or whatnot, because I was always wanting to give it a shot because the premise of it was kind of absurd. Like you said, you know, the one character, her fists or what have you are on like springs that are her hair that she's flinging at you and whatnot. So thank you for that, because that's, you know, both very good things to remember that they exist. One of them especially because, you know, staying healthy, or at least trying to stay healthy, is a nice thing to do in life, I suppose.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I'm reminded that like, oh, I should have exercised more in my 20s. But in for ARMS, it's because it's been out for at least 6 years, I want to say, maybe 6 or 5. Uh, but because it's a Nintendo game, that doesn't mean the game has gotten any cheaper, right? Usually, after a couple years, game is a bit on a sale price. But yeah, I think even though I still really recommend the game, you probably still pay the full price.
Yes, I live in Canada and it's even worse here
Oh
somehow.
yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
and like, and the way it's worse is probably not for the reasons that you would think. Um, for whatever reason, in the States, you'll see what's the boxing, no, Black Friday or what have you. You see these like sales coming up and you'd always see the ads and it'd be like these games down to like 30, $40 or what have you, or 50. Um, a good sale, and it'd be a good chunk of them. For Canada, the only games that seem to go on sale down to like 50 from 80 or 60 from 80, um, or what have you, is going to be like um, the last Mario game that I'm forgetting the name of, um, which is horrible.
Oh, is it
Breath of
Odyssey?
Odyssey, yes. Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart. Um, Those are the only three consistently that I remember going on sale when they do these sales. So yeah, so it's even worse for other games for us because Nintendo hates us for some reason. It's the Nintendo tax for Canada is even worse. Luckily, I live near the States, so whenever I drive to the States to do some stuff, I look at Walmart and see what they have, and for whatever reason, Walmart's like, yeah, this game's on for sale for $15. It's like, well, okay then.
Oh wow,
Okay
yeah.
then. It's a
Yeah.
nice change of pace.
No, totally. And I hear the taxes on electronics in Canada are pretty high. At least a friend of mine who's from Canada, that's what they told me.
I don't know the. Yes, we do have a weird way of certain things like electronics are taxed because like the recycling fee is baked in now, even if you don't
Oh,
recycle it. Um, yeah, so yeah, we do have some environmental taxes and stuff stacked on top. So like it's a percentage too. So if you buy like an expensive monitor, um, let's say it's like a $500 monitor or whatever, you're paying like 30 extra dollars in like recycling environmental fees. Um,
dang. Yeah.
which is yes, so it's those, don't quote me on those rate amounts. I'm just making up random numbers there. I don't think it's like really that high, but either way, it's like yeah, it can really make or break your budget if it's a tight budget.
Yeah. I mean, it's for a good reason, but still sucks, just because the price of everything has gone up lately.
Yes, exactly. It's just an extra kind of kick in the teeth or what have you when you're already trying to balance things out, and you've lost those old cheap options, those good cheap options that used to be, what people recommended, and now they're out the door. So Louisa, I am curious about this, and you talked on your idea of uh not exactly like your favorite game, um, but like the game that kind of brought a bunch of everything together for you that made you go, oh, hey, this is a cool thing. I'm wondering if you do though have like an actual favorite game or like an actual perfect game or what have you. Um, I would try and use the Ratatouille moment kind of question, but I have a feeling that might end up just being wow. So I think that I think that example or that what have you might be a bad way to ask it. But like, do you have like a favorite game that time and time again, if you sit down to play it, you're going to enjoy it? And if it is WoW, I completely understand. I'm sorry for bringing up WoW yet again.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I think WoW, like, it holds a really special place in my heart. But I haven't booted it up in so long, to be honest. And I want to say, yeah, I think Persona 5 is probably my favorite game. Um, that being said, I've played it like 1.5 times, and during my second playthrough, I just found it like so much of it was lost because like I already knew the story, I already knew what was going to happen, the challenges in terms of gameplay, and how to get around them. I don't find, at least for me particularly, like a super replayable game. But but yeah, I mean, very similar to Super Mario Galaxy, Persona 5's experience is so consistent in every single like point where I get enjoyment from game. The gameplay is really fun, but the music is immaculate. The art is just very like works so well for the genre and what it's trying to accomplish. The UI, like I don't think there's any game that has as good of a UI as Persona 5. It actively makes the experience more enjoyable. Um, yeah, so maybe I'll say that's my favorite game.
So, thank you for speaking of that. And uh, one of my biggest takeaways for Persona 5, and I think it's, this is going to ring kind of true to what you just said as well, is that the UI, the UI UX, the user experience, and the interface, and like just all of that together, it oozed style. Like it was such a, I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't want to say it was weird. It was such an unexpected thing when I first played it to be like, oh wow, this is like, they had like the music theme is acid jazz, and I'm like, this is just like jazz, like just it's everything about it is like smooth and just so amazing. I don't know, sorry, but it sounded like you were kind of it sounds like you were probably in a similar boat to me.
Yeah, no, because it's so like broke the mold of what you expect a video game to kind of be in that sense for the UI. Because I feel like for a few years and some games still like really subscribe to like the minimalist UI, almost like they are inspired by Apple to try and make it like as unintrusive as possible. Uh, but which I can appreciate for some games, but I think Persona knew that they could totally go crazy, go nuts with it. And the story, like, once you start to reach the end of the game, it kept me like up for so late, so many nights, because I was like, wait, I just want to advance a little bit more. I need to know what's going to happen. Oh, I need to beat this one extra part of the dungeon to be fed a little bit more extra story. Like it kept me on the edge of my seat.
Yes, exactly. I think, um, like we touched on earlier, like just the story, just everything about like what it delivers. Yeah, it sounds, it's a very. I am struggling to think of the right words right now. It is just executed so masterfully. I think that's
Hmm.
the easiest way to put it without fumbling any more than I am.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was very, very cohesive experience.
So, Louisa, I do want to ask this because one of the things I like discussing with people when they come on is, the focus on them as people. And I'm wondering, outside of games, what do you like? What do you enjoy doing? Like, how do you relax? And I understand that for a lot of people, games are that thing. So, I'm not trying to throw shade or what have you if that is your thing. But I am curious, so if there's other things that you enjoy doing outside of games that you would like to share that, that make up who you are.
Yeah, no, totally. I love nature so much, and I think you can see in my portfolio and my past work that like I am so inspired by it. So I love going outside as much as I can, doing some hiking or visiting, scenic spots. This summer, most recently, I went to Wyoming, and I got to visit the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone National Park, and it was so wonderful. I felt so like disconnected to what was going on in the world to just appreciate the beauty of nature. Um, and sometimes, I'll take with me like my painting kit and I'll try and do some paintings while I'm out there. I didn't do any while I was in Wyoming just because I didn't want to take my painting kit with me on the plane. But most recently in California, I went to Santa Barbara and there's this beautiful lake called Lake Cachuba, and I painted the lake. So I love trying to find opportunities to do a bit of painting and enjoying nature at the same time. And I do live in LA, which makes it great for me as a foodie to just explore, different restaurants and different bakeries and try out different, cuisines. So I'd say those are some of the things that I do on my weekends, on my time off.
So, thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious if someone was wanting to try and get into doing, um, the kind of, uh, I don't know the right word because I don't know what it would fully entail for you. But if someone was trying to have like a little painting kit and they wanted to get started doing something similar to what you do when you go to places and, oh, this is nice, I'd like to capture it or what have you. Is there like a easy, um, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Is there like this is what you would need to get started if you wanted to try and do these things? I hope what I'm asking makes sense because uh, in my head, it's even kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, totally. I think, one of the most easy to travel with kits is probably like watercolors. Just because like to activate it, you just need to bring some water along with you. And I would say like the impact of it is kind of minimal. Like if you once you're done painting, like have a little bit of like water with some pigments that hopefully you can find a safe space to dispose of it. Like oil painting, I would not recommend for traveling so much, just because it's like the paints themselves are toxic. You need turpentine, that's toxic. The paint stays wet for 2 weeks. Watercolor dries very quickly. But I myself, I like to use gouache, which is just a thicker kind of version of watercolor. It has a bit more of a body to it, so the color is a bit more opaque. I would say it's slightly harder to work with because you can paint a thick layer and then try to paint on top. But if you don't do it carefully, you might be lifting the pigment underneath and making the colors muddy. But I find watercolor tough to work with because it creates unexpected results. And I think if you're somebody that doesn't mind and kind of rolls with it, then it's the perfect medium. It creates nice textures and kind of like puddles. For me, I like to be very precise with what I'm doing, and I find it that gouache allows me to like, this is the color I mix, this is the color I will see more or less when it's dry. Where I am applying it, it's not going to spread too much on the paper. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Some people even like to just use their iPad and Procreate. I think that's great. For me, I think I would struggle with like not being able to see my screen because like the glare from the sun would be so strong.
So, thank you for sharing that. Um, and I always forget just how rough oil paint is until someone, like you said, it takes a few weeks to dry. Oh, there's turpentine.
Yeah.
Oh, and the paint itself is toxic. I always forget these things until someone mentions it, because like I don't do a lot of physical or digital painting. I don't want to make it sound like I do one, not the other. Um, but when I was playing around with like physical mediums, oil was never one I screwed around with, just because it was always like, you have everything to set up with. It's like, no, well, then don't do it. Like,
Yeah,
don't
it's a
care.
tough one.
Like that ball of turpentine. It's like, okay, you're gonna want a bunch of this. It's like, no, okay, then don't start. Don't even bother. But no, thank you for the recommendation on that. Um, as someone that had to work with gouache as part of uh, school, um, the fear and annoyance of it, like you said, if you do it wrong, lifting and just misbehaving, um, was always a nightmare for me, especially because uh, the the mixing of it to make it like usable is like the consistency of milk, quote unquote, right?
Hmm.
But it's always one of those things. It's like, well, I drink 2%. To other people's like I drink skim. It's like which consistency are we doing here, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it was always terrifying for me because like there was one person in my class who did it beautifully 100% of the time. And it's like, "Oh, how do you know that's consistency? Is that like, your idea of milkshake? I didn't mix it to milk." I just mixed it. It's like, okay, well, thank you. You're a savant. Thank you. It's it's just scary now.
I feel
Um,
like one of the beautiful things about art is like technically there should be no right or wrong. And, if you have mixed a more thicker version of the gouache paint, you might be just trying to apply more texture to it. So all these things can be completely intentional or unintentional and create happy accidents. And yeah, I totally feel you though, because earlier this year I was painting at the beach, and because of all, just the breeze from the ocean, it was drying out my paints all the time, and I was having a really hard time being able to paint with like a consistent wetness. But so I'm just like applying more water, and then like more breeze, my paper's drying.
and I do want to say thank you for the positivity of accepting that maybe you were trying to put more texture on. I feel that is something that the professor at the time could have had more tact with for some of us, because he was not that reassuring. He was actually very mean about it. I think that's the best way to put it. But thank you for your positivity and reassurance on how you touch that, because yes, for someone that got yelled at for it, I would have much I would have much more appreciated
Oh no,
some
what year in school were you when that happened?
it was my first semester for design. So the first it was the first of 3 years.
Yeah, I actually had a very similar experience in my first semester in college as well. We were, painting like the primaries and like different gradients, trying to do like perfect black to white gradients. And the teacher was like so extremely specific with what was considered successful or not. So I think, it just must be like if you go to college for arts and design, a shared experience with everybody.
Yes, and this is the same. So you very much just brought up a memory for me. This was the same professor um, for the same test. I'm gonna put air quotes exercise that you had to do, going from black to white, and doing like the color wheel, the color scale, and all of
Yeah.
that using. So yes, yep. Thank you for that memory. I got yelled at a lot for not being able to do that smoothly. Um, but anyway, Louisa, I am curious as well, because you mentioned being a foodie. I'm wondering if someone was going to be visiting LA and they were like, just give me two restaurants because that's all they had time for. What two restaurants would you say these are the places that you think they would check out?
Ooh, oh my gosh, because there's so many places. But if you like sushi, there's this place in Torrance, which is the South Bay region of LA, called Wadatsumi, and they do amazing tuna bowls. And it's just, just rice and very high quality, medium fatty tuna. And it's amazing every single time that I go. And it's a bit of a hidden spot. So I guess I'm now sharing it with everybody who wants to check it out. But if you're not a fan of sushi, there's a spot in Santa Monica that just kind of does more like new American, I like to call it like, hipster food. It has a little bit of everything. You can order ribeye, you can order fish, you can order just a bunch of like delicious vegetable sides. I really, really like that place. Every single time I go, I get their what is it? Chicken liver pate, which sounds disgusting, but I don't know. I love theirs. It's so good. They serve it with pickled blackberries and honey, and you spread that mixture on your bread, and it's just I don't know, just a nice little pocket of flavor.
So thank you very much for those recommendations. One a little unconventional, the whole mixture. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while since I've had someone recommend like a chicken liver pate to me. But then the additionals of the honey and the blackberry um sounds very interesting. So like thank you for that recommendation. Anyone else that's listening and wants to be adventurous, uh those would be neat things to check out. I can't speak to it more Sorry, I don't know where I'm going with that, but thank you so much for the recommendation.
Yeah, they're tasty.
Now, Luiza, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. However, before I let you go, I do want to hit you up with some lighthearted, nonsensical, and a little bit random questions for a quick lightning round. I'm hoping that that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Now, as I mentioned before we started recording, these are quick, no judgment, random questions. So, by all means, answer however you feel see to feel fit. I don't know where I'm going with that right there. Answer however you'd like. There we go. And don't think too hard on these questions because, boy, howdy, do they risk falling apart.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll do my best.
What game character is most likely to think of the Holy Roman Empire at least once a week?
Oh my god. I'm already crumbling. Uh, maybe Anduin Wern from World of Warcraft for some reason.
Fair enough. I'm not too familiar with the character. I will definitely take your judgment on that.
Yeah, I think because like you meet him as a child, in early in the game, and now he's an adult, and you saw him grow as as a person who's played the game, and then you realize that's how much time has elapsed in real life, and then you start thinking too hard.
Yes, fair enough. That is one of the risks of these questions is the moment you actually try and apply some form of logic to them, out the window, the question itself can go.
Oh man, sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. I am happy to be the cause of chaos in that kind of question. If a fast food restaurant had a meal based on your favorite game series, what would it be?
Ooh, I mean, I think a Persona 5 burger would be really fun, and maybe they try to make it like the colors of Persona 5, so like the bun is bright red. I for some reason the meat is super charred and black, so that would not be very tasty, but maybe you throw enough ketchup that it masks the whole flavor profile, but then it's very like, okay, cool, that's the Persona 5 color scheme is black and red.
um, yes, thank you for that. If I could, I would say maybe black squid ink instead of just overcharring the burger into burnt crisp.
Yeah, that sounds way tastier.
Now, for the final one for you, I don't know how this is going to go. It's not a normal lightning round question, so it's kind of reserved just for you in this case. Now, Luiza, someone has given you a shopping channel, and you get to have Tanaka's own special gifts or things that they can buy. What are they going to find on your shopping channel?
Oh my gosh, it would be sunscreen. I am so passionate about telling people just the wonders of sunscreen. I really believe that like if you're going outside and exposing yourself to the sun, you should do your best to wear sunscreen. And unfortunately, in the United States, there has been very little development in terms of like trying to make sunscreen a more comfortable experience since like the 90s. Like no new sunscreen components have been allowed by the FDA. And if you get sunscreen from other countries, like, depending, on the formulation, they can be so much more cosmetically elegant, right? By that I mean they're not sticky, they won't make, because sunscreen makes your skin white if you're getting a quote unquote physical sunscreen that uses like chemicals that are reflecting the sunlight. You can get chemical sunscreens that will absorb the sunlight and dissipate the energy, and they don't make your skin look white, they're transparent. So I would definitely be shilling just sunscreen, different sunscreens, be saying this one's um, if you need more moisture, this one's more moisturizing. This one, it's great under makeup. I don't know. It probably would be only about sunscreen.
Thank you for that. I have been left with more questions than answers from that one. Um, I've I've never actually thought too hard on sunscreen, being as someone that has grown up in North America. I've always just sort of assumed sunscreen is the white blobby stuff that you put on your skin, work in, and you just have to deal with the fact that it's going to be uh, exactly what it is. However, I will 100% echo the importance of it, especially, over a year ago now, I went to Disney with my partner, and the first day out, we thought we had enough sunscreen on when we left in the morning. We definitely did not. We did not take into consideration that that is something you have to reapply multiple times a day. And yeah, so I will 100% echo the importance of sunscreen. And if you had such a channel, I would very much look forward to seeing what kind of non-North American advancements existed to get in on.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'll try to drop the subject, but I've there's this one particular brand of sunscreen that I like very much, and I've convinced over 10 people to start using it, and they were like non-sunscreen wearers because they hated the texture. They were just like, this is I just feel unhappy with it on. And then ever since they've tried, the ones I've recommended, they were like, it's a night and day experience. So if you'd like after the show to continue discussing sunscreen, I'd be more than happy to convert more people.
I don't mean this to try and be dismissive. I don't need converting. However, I would like to know this brand. And, I'm perfectly fine if you dropping the name on the recording. I just like to know what the brand is.
Yeah, so it's a Biore Aqua Rich, and there is an American version and there's a Japanese version. But you definitely want the Japanese version because the American one will only use the chemicals that are allowed, with our, cosmetic advancements. It's not to say that like whatever, people are using in Australia or Europe or Japan are unsafe. They just haven't been approved in the United States. I'm not sure about Canada, but definitely get the Japanese version of the Biore sunscreen.
So thank you for that. I've written that down. Um, I have a feeling at some point in time I'll be doing a Japan order from Amazon in the future. So I'm going to look for that just because I am curious about what the difference will be. And the experience, I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to go with experience. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's cheap too. That's the best part.
I'm never one to argue with something that's cheap and that does a good job. So, yes, thank you. So, Luiza, I do not want to take up too much more from. I don't know why I emphasize that one. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I do want to let you get on if you're Friday evening. However, if there is anything else you want to discuss, a cool game, what you're doing, something you feel more people should just be more aware of, by all means, the floor is yours. As well, please let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll also be including in the episode description.
Yeah. I think the only last thing that I wanted to say, just because like a game that I recently finished, and it's on Steam, it's Exit 8, and then the game that came after it's called Station 8, and it's like an indie game that I think was only made by like one person, and it's a horror game, but I think it's quite funny because it's all about you are stuck in a Japanese train station and you can't find your exit, which I think for a lot of people who have visited Japan, and I was recently in Japan in December of last year. I didn't live in Tokyo too much, so like some of the train stations are like unfamiliar to me. Um, I got lost in Shinjuku, and I remember just being very anxious during that whole experience. And then I was playing this game, Exit 8, where you're trying to find your correct, exit of the train station. And it's like, yeah, this is funny. They tried to make it horror-y, but I recommend it if you want something that is gonna just make you laugh.
So thank you for that. I did a quick look because I was you mentioned the name and you were describing. I'm like, is this what I think it is? And this is that weird one where like, as you're walking, you're not supposed to look behind you, and like people like there's some NPCs and stuff, and it's just like an unsettling thing as like you get followed by NPCs and all that fun stuff as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Station 8, which is the game that came after, so instead of being stuck in the train station, you're stuck inside the train and you're moving between different carts. And that one is, I would say, much more scary. I actually screamed once while playing it because like one of the things really spooked me. Uh, but on the whole, like once you finish the game, you're like, oh, that was funny.
So, thank you for that recommendation. I've been curious about them and I keep forgetting the name. So I've written them down. So now I actually know the name to look into it. Now, I am curious though, not to dwell too much on this. But wasn't that what Persona 5 was preparing you for that whole time? The whole Shinjuku station?
Yeah, I guess so. Especially with mementos, you're just like you're grinding out those shadows endlessly in the Shibuya train station. No, totally. I should have been better prepared, but I guess I goofed.
Now, I'm not trying to put you on the spot in that one and, shame you or anything, but, it just came to mind.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I like games that have trains in them. Oh no.
uh, but Louise, as I said, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Um, so if there wasn't anything else, I will 100%, let you go. Oh, where can people find you? I do not believe you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, right. I am somewhat active on Twitter. I go by just Luiza Tanaka, just my name, for my handle. I guess it goes by X now. I don't know. I still think it's Twitter in my head. Um, I think that's the most active spot. I also have an art station. That's just where I post my professional work, and so not too much interaction on that side. But yeah, if you want to see what it is that I do, those two sites would probably be it.
Awesome. So thank you very much. I will make sure that your Twitter and your art station are in your in the episode description when it comes out for you.
Oh,
That
thank you
way,
so
like you
much.
said, yeah, no worries. That way, like you said, if people are curious, they can see, and definitely, if they want to learn more about you or see what other kind of things you get up to or what have you, they'll have a way to follow you and learn more about you if they want.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Now, outside of that, though, like I said, I do want to work towards letting you go. So if there wasn't anything else, I will definitely let you get on with your Friday evening.
Oh, good. All right. Yeah, I guess I'll join up with my friends soon to play some D&D with them.
Awesome. I am happy that you have a good wind down for the evening and that there's, hopefully with how D&D can go, hopefully it's a nice, safe wind down that doesn't end in, anyone getting wiped.
Yeah, no, I think our party, we've done a good job at healing one another when somebody gets too low, but no wipes yet, thankfully.
Oh, I will keep my fingers crossed for you then. So thanks again to Luiza for making time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Ronald Jenkins for the use of music from the title track from Road Steep. And be sure to check out the episode description for links to socials, websites, and other means that will allow you to learn more about or support Luiza and the podcast. While you're doing that, share, like, follow, and whatever else you think makes the algorithm work. Thanks, till next time.